The moment you stop seeking approval is the moment your power returns to you. And most people will never experience real authority because they are addicted to being liked. Think about it. From childhood, you were trained to chase approval. Good grades meant approval. Good behavior meant approval. Fitting in meant approval. So subconsciously, you learned that acceptance equals safety. But what works in a classroom will weaken you in the real world. In the marketplace of life, approval does not create respect. Conviction does. When you constantly look for validation, you begin to edit yourself. You soften your opinions. You dilute your ideas. You say what sounds good instead of what is true. And every time you do that, you lower your perceived value. Not because you are less intelligent, but because you are signaling uncertainty. And uncertainty kills influence. Powerful people are not powerful because everyone agrees with them. They are powerful because they agree with themselves. They have internal alignment. When they speak, their words carry weight because they are not testing the room to see if it is safe to stand on their beliefs. They already decided who they are before they walked in. And here's the shift. People don't respect you when you try to impress them. They respect you when you are not trying to impress them at all. There is something magnetic about a person who does not need applause. There is something commanding about someone who can say no without guilt, who can disagree without anger, who can stand alone without feeling abandoned. When you seek approval, you become emotionally negotiable. Anyone can manipulate you with praise or control you with criticism. Compliments make you rise. Criticism makes you collapse. That means other people are controlling your emotional thermostat. But when you stop seeking approval, you stabilize. You become steady. Praise does not inflate you. Criticism does not break you. You listen, you evaluate, but you are not shaken. That stability creates authority, and authority changes how people treat you. In 2026, if you want different treatment, make this one decision. I will no longer trade authenticity for acceptance. That means you will stop over-explaining your boundaries. You will stop apologizing for having standards. You will stop shrinking to make insecure people comfortable. You will speak clearly. You will decide quickly. You will move confidently. And here is what will shock you. Some people will not like it. And that is okay, because when you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you become respected by the right ones. Approval is cheap. Anyone can clap for you when you are entertaining them. But respect is expensive. Respect comes when people know you cannot be easily swayed. Respect comes when your words match your actions. Respect comes when you are consistent under pressure. And consistency only happens when you are living from internal conviction instead of external validation. The world responds to certainty. If you walk into a room unsure of yourself, people will sense it instantly. If you speak with hesitation, people will question your credibility. But when you speak with clarity and calm conviction, not arrogance, not aggression, just certainty, people adjust their behavior. They lean in, they listen differently, they treat you differently. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence changed. So here is the truth. The treatment you receive is often connected to the energy you project. And the energy you project is shaped by what you believe about yourself. When you believe you must earn approval to deserve space, you shrink. When you believe you are already worthy of space, you expand. Expansion commands attention. Expansion commands respect. Make the decision once. Decide that you will value truth over popularity. Decide that you will prioritize purpose over pleasing people. Decide that your identity is not up for public vote. And once you make that internal shift, watch what happens. Conversations change, opportunities change, relationships change, because when you stop chasing approval, you stop operating from fear. And when fear leaves, power shows up. If you want people to treat you differently, you must first master self-respect, because the world does not decide your value. It reflects the value you have already decided for yourself. Most people think disrespect starts outside of them. They think it begins with someone else's words, someone else's tone, someone else's behavior. But disrespect almost always begins internally. It begins the moment you tolerate what you know you shouldn't tolerate. It begins the moment you say, "It's fine," when it's not fine. It begins when you betray your own standards just to keep the peace. And every time you ignore your inner voice, you quietly teach people that your boundaries are flexible. Here's the hard truth. People test what you tolerate, not because they are evil, but because human nature is constantly assessing limits. If you don't define your boundaries clearly, others will define them for you. If you don't protect your time, people will waste it. If you don't protect your energy, people will drain it. If you don't protect your standards, people will lower them. Self-respect is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not aggressive. It is calm, firm, and consistent. It's the ability to say no without explaining your entire life story. It's the discipline to walk away without announcing it. It's the courage to stand alone if necessary. When you respect yourself, your posture changes. You don't beg for attention. You don't chase validation. You don't argue to prove your worth. You understand that your value is not on trial, and that internal certainty creates external results. People can feel when someone carries themselves with quiet confidence. They notice when you don't laugh at disrespect disguised as jokes. They notice when you don't respond to provocation. They notice when you calmly correct behavior the first time instead of letting it slide 10 times. That is self-respect in action. Many people struggle here because they confuse kindness with weakness. They think being respectful means accepting everything. But real respect, both given and received, requires standards. If you have no standards, you have no structure. And without structure, there is no strength. A building without structure collapses under pressure. A person without standards collapses under social pressure. Self-respect is your structure. It holds you steady when emotions try to pull you into compromise. In 2026, if you want different treatment, make one decision. I will no longer abandon myself to keep others comfortable. That means you will stop overextending yourself for people who don't reciprocate. You will stop tolerating conversations that drain you. You will stop allowing sarcasm, subtle disrespect, or manipulation to go unchecked, not with anger, but with clarity. You don't need to fight. You just need to be firm. And here's what happens when you truly respect yourself. The wrong people fall away, and that can feel uncomfortable at first. But understand this. Losing access to you is a consequence, not a punishment. When someone realizes they can no longer treat you casually, they have two choices: rise to your standard or remove themselves. Either way, you win. Self-respect also means keeping promises to yourself. If you say you're going to wake up early, do it. If you say you're going to improve your skills, do it. If you say you deserve better, prove it through action. Because the more you trust yourself, the stronger your internal foundation becomes. And when you trust yourself, you stop tolerating less from others. The world mirrors your internal standards. If you see yourself as optional, others will treat you as optional. If you see yourself as valuable, others will begin to adjust. Not instantly, not magically, but consistently, because energy speaks before words do. So stop waiting for someone else to respect you first. That day may never come. Instead, raise your standards privately. Decide what is acceptable and what is not. Enforce it calmly, live by it consistently, and watch how people begin to recalibrate their behavior around you. Because when you master self-respect once, truly master it, you don't have to demand different treatment. You embody it. One of the most powerful shifts you can make, just once, is learning the discipline of silence. Not weak silence, not fearful silence, strategic silence. Because the person who reacts to everything loses authority over anything. Most people destroy their influence because they feel the need to respond to every comment, defend every accusation, correct every misunderstanding, and win every argument. But power is not proven through constant reaction. Power is revealed through restraint. When you react emotionally, you give people access to your internal control panel. They learn what triggers you. They learn what unsettles you. They learn how to push your buttons. And once someone knows how to control your emotions, they can control your behavior. That is not strength. That is vulnerability disguised as passion. Emotional discipline, on the other hand, creates mystery, and mystery creates authority. Think about it. The calmest person in the room often feels like the strongest person in the room. Not because they are louder, not because they are more aggressive, but because they are not moved easily. When someone criticizes you and you don't rush to defend yourself, people notice. When someone tries to provoke you and you maintain composure, people notice. When tension rises and you remain steady, people notice. Your silence begins to communicate something powerful. I am not threatened. In 2026, if you want different treatment, stop reacting instantly. Create space between stimulus and response. That space is where power lives. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can clap back. Anyone can post a response online to defend their ego. But the person who pauses, evaluates, and chooses whether a response is even necessary, that person operates at a different level. Silence does three things. First, it protects your energy. Every reaction costs you something. Mental focus, emotional stability, spiritual clarity. If you are constantly reacting, you are constantly drained. Second, silence forces others to sit with their own words. When you argue back immediately, you give them momentum. When you stay calm, the weight of their own behavior often becomes obvious. Third, silence increases your perceived confidence. When you don't feel the need to prove yourself, people assume you have nothing to prove. This doesn't mean you never speak. It means you choose your moments carefully. It means you respond with intention instead of impulse. It means you correct behavior once, clearly and calmly, instead of debating it emotionally. Silence is not avoidance. It is control. It is the decision that your peace is more valuable than winning a temporary exchange. Many people struggle with this because their ego wants to be right. Their pride wants to defend. Their insecurity wants reassurance. But when you are secure in who you are, you don't feel urgency to explain yourself to everyone. You understand that misunderstanding is not fatal. Criticism is not collapse. Disagreement is not disrespect, unless you allow it to become that internally. There is also a psychological effect to silence. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. If you talk constantly, your voice blends into background noise. But when you are measured, when you are thoughtful, when you are selective, people lean in when you do speak. They listen more carefully. They assign more importance to your words. Silence increases the value of your voice. Here's the deeper truth. Emotional reactions often reveal insecurity. Composure reveals strength. If someone can insult you and you crumble, it signals doubt. If someone can challenge you and you remain calm, it signals certainty. And certainty commands respect. So make this decision once. I will not react to everything. I will not defend myself to everyone. I will not allow my emotions to be manipulated by anyone. Instead, I will observe. I will assess. I will respond only when necessary. And when I do speak, it will be intentional, calm, and controlled. Watch what happens when you master this. People hesitate before provoking you. Conversations shift in tone. Arguments decrease. Your presence feels heavier, steadier, more grounded. Not because you became louder, but because you became harder to shake. And when you become hard to shake, people treat you differently. If you want people to treat you differently, raise your standards once and for all, and refuse to negotiate them with your emotions. Because what you tolerate teaches people how to treat you. Not what you say, not what you post, not what you claim, what you consistently allow. Every time you accept lateness without consequence, you teach people your time is flexible. Every time you accept disrespect disguised as humor, you teach people your dignity is optional. Every time you accept inconsistency, broken promises, and low effort, you silently communicate that your standards are negotiable. Standards are not about arrogance. They are about alignment. They are the invisible line that separates what enters your life from what does not. And here's the truth most people avoid. Low standards feel comfortable in the short term because they avoid conflict. High standards feel uncomfortable in the short term because they create friction. But long term, low standards create regret. High standards create respect. When you raise your standards, some people will call you changed. They will say you are acting different, and they're right. You are. Growth always looks like distance to those who refuse to grow. When you decide that your time matters, that your peace matters, that your effort deserves reciprocation, you automatically reduce access. And limited access increases value. Anything easily available is easily overlooked. Anything protected is perceived as important. In 2026, if you truly want different treatment, stop announcing your standards and start enforcing them quietly. You don't need long speeches. You don't need emotional confrontations. You need consistency. If someone violates a boundary, address it once calmly. If it continues, adjust your availability. Not with anger, not with revenge, with alignment. Your life must reflect what you claim to believe. Many people fail here because they set standards emotionally but abandon them under pressure. They say, I won't tolerate this, until loneliness shows up. They say, I deserve better, until an opportunity feels scarce. They say, I'm done accepting less, until familiarity pulls them back. But standards only work when they are maintained without negotiation. The moment you break your own standard, others notice, and they adjust accordingly. High standards also apply to yourself. If you expect respect, you must embody discipline. If you expect reliability, you must be reliable. If you expect excellence, you must pursue excellence. Standards are not just filters for others, they are commitments to your own growth. When your actions align with your expectations, your confidence rises, and confidence changes your presence. Here is what happens when you consistently operate from elevated standards. The wrong opportunities fall away, the wrong relationships dissolve, the wrong environments become uncomfortable. At first, it may feel like loss, but it is actually alignment. You are no longer available for what contradicts your direction, and that clarity simplifies your life. People are drawn to structure. They respect those who know what they will and will not accept. When you become predictable in your principles, you become stable in your presence, and stability commands respect. Others may test your limits once, but when they see consistency, they stop testing. Make the decision once. Decide the level of treatment you will accept. Decide the caliber of effort you will give and require. Decide how you will allow people to speak to you. And once you decide, live it daily. No drama, no speeches, just action. Because the world adjusts to your standards faster than you realize. Raise them and watch the room recalibrate. If you want people to treat you differently, develop rare and valuable skills, because competence commands respect in a way personality never will. You can be kind, you can be friendly, you can be motivational, but if you are not competent, you will always be seen as optional. The world does not reward effort alone. It rewards results, and results come from skill. When you become excellent at something that solves real problems, your treatment changes automatically, not because you demanded it, but because your presence produces value. Most people want respect before they have earned leverage. They want recognition before they have built results. They want influence before they have developed mastery. But in every environment, business, career, relationships, the person who can produce outcomes becomes difficult to ignore. When you are replaceable, people treat you casually. When you are rare, people treat you carefully. Here's the shift. Instead of focusing on how people treat you, focus on becoming so skilled that mistreating you becomes expensive. In business, the person who generates revenue is handled differently. In a workplace, the person who solves complex problems is handled differently. In any team, the person who performs under pressure is handled differently. Why? Because value creates leverage, and leverage changes dynamics. In 2026, stop asking, why don't they respect me? And start asking, what skill can I develop that makes me undeniably valuable? Maybe it's communication, maybe it's sales, maybe it's technology, maybe it's leadership, maybe it's discipline and reliability, and which, by the way, are rare skills today. Whatever it is, commit to mastery, not dabbling, not surface level learning, deep competence. The marketplace rewards specialization. General effort blends in, specific excellence stands out. When you become known for something, truly known for it, your identity shifts. People begin to associate you with results, and when your name becomes connected to results, your influence expands. Skill also builds internal confidence. When you know you can perform, you stop seeking validation. When you know you can solve problems, you stop fearing rejection. When you know you can create value anywhere, you stop tolerating environments that undervalue you. Competence removes desperation, and desperation is the fastest way to lose respect. Think about it. The calmest person in a crisis is usually the one who knows what to do. Knowledge stabilizes emotion. Skill stabilizes presence. When others panic, the skilled person acts, and that action builds authority. Authority builds respect. But here's the part most people ignore. Skill requires discipline. It requires repetition. It requires studying when others are scrolling. It requires practicing when others are complaining. It requires long periods of being unnoticed. Mastery is built in private before it is rewarded in public, and many people quit in the private stage because they crave recognition too early. If you truly want different treatment, fall in love with the process of improvement. Spend hours sharpening your ability. Invest in learning. Seek mentors. Practice deliberately. Track your progress. Refine your craft. Over time, the gap between you and average widens, and that gap becomes your advantage. When you are average, people negotiate with you. When you are exceptional, people accommodate you. That's the difference. Excellence shifts the balance of power without you having to argue for it. So make this decision once. I will become so skilled, so disciplined, so reliable that my value speaks before I do. I will not chase attention. I will build ability. I will not demand respect. I will develop competence. Because when you can consistently produce results, the room treats you differently. And the beautiful part is this: skills travel with you. No one can take them away. No title defines them. No environment limits them. When you invest in yourself at that level, you carry leverage wherever you go. Become rare, become excellent, become valuable. And watch how the world responds. If you want people to treat you differently, detach from outcomes, because desperation lowers your value faster than incompetence ever could. The moment someone senses that you need something from them, approval, attention, validation, money, opportunity, the power dynamic shifts. Need creates pressure. Pressure creates weakness, and weakness invites negotiation. But when you operate from a place of detachment, your energy changes completely. You are no longer chasing, you are choosing. Most people don't realize how much their behavior is controlled by attachment. They are attached to being liked, so they tolerate disrespect. They are attached to keeping a relationship, so they ignore red flags. They are attached to closing a deal, so they lower their standards. They are attached to winning an argument, so they lose their composure. Attachment makes you emotional, and emotional instability makes you predictable. When someone can predict that you need the outcome, they gain leverage over you. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you are not controlled. It means you give your best effort, but your identity is not tied to the result. It means you pursue opportunities, but you are not afraid to walk away. It means you value relationships, but you refuse to beg for them. And that shift alone changes how people respond to you. In 2026, if you want different treatment, stop acting like every opportunity is your last one. Scarcity energy makes you small. Abundance energy makes you steady. When you believe there will always be another chance, another deal, another relationship, another path, you stop clinging. And when you stop clinging, you stop negotiating against yourself. Think about negotiation for a moment. The person who can walk away has the most power, not the loudest person, not the most aggressive person, the one who is least emotionally attached to the outcome, because they are free. Freedom creates confidence. Confidence changes tone. Tone changes perception, perception changes treatment. When you detach, your conversations become calmer. You don't overtalk, you don't overpromise, you don't overexplain. You present your value clearly and let the other person decide. And if they don't see it, you move forward. No resentment, no pleading, no emotional collapse. That stability signals strength. Here's the deeper truth. Attachment often comes from insecurity. If you believe this is your only chance, you will compromise too much. If you believe this is your only source of validation, you will accept too little. But when you invest in yourself, your skills, your discipline, your mindset, you begin to trust that you can create new outcomes. That trust allows you to release control over any single one. Detachment also protects your emotional energy. When things don't go your way, you adapt instead of breaking. When someone rejects you, you recalibrate instead of spiraling. When a plan fails, you adjust instead of quitting. Because your identity is not wrapped around the event. It is anchored in who you are. And here's what happens when you truly embody detachment. People feel it. They sense that you are not easily pressured. They sense that you are not desperate. They sense that your presence is a choice, not a plea. And when people feel that you can walk away at any moment without losing your composure, they treat you with more care. Make this decision once. I will give my best effort, but I will not attach my worth to the result. I will pursue, but I will not chase. I will offer value, but I will not beg for acceptance. I will desire success, but I will not fear walking alone. Because the moment you stop needing the outcome is the moment you gain leverage over it. And leverage changes everything. If you want people to treat you differently, master your emotional energy, because the person who controls their emotions controls their environment. Most people think power is about money, status, or position, but real power is emotional discipline. If someone can disturb your peace with a few words, they have control over you. If someone can trigger you into anger, insecurity, or panic, they are influencing your behavior. And when others can influence your behavior easily, they don't see you as strong, they see you as reactive. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings, it's about governing them. It's about feeling anger, but choosing calm, feeling pressure, but choosing clarity, feeling fear, but choosing action. The difference between average and exceptional people is not the absence of emotion, it's the management of it. Average people react, leaders respond. In 2026, if you want different treatment, stop letting your emotions speak before your mind does. When tension rises, slow down. When criticism comes, breathe. When someone challenges you, listen fully before responding. That pause alone will separate you from most people, because most people operate on impulse. They say the first thing they feel. They act on the first surge of emotion, and then they spend time repairing the damage. Calm confidence changes rooms. When you remain steady while others are unstable, you naturally become the center of gravity. People look to you. They adjust around you. They lower their tone when you don't escalate yours. They think twice before disrespecting someone who cannot be easily shaken. Emotional volatility lowers perceived value. If you are unpredictable, if your mood changes every hour, if small issues create big reactions, people hesitate to trust you with responsibility. Stability builds trust. Trust builds respect. Respect changes treatment. Think about crisis situations. Who gets listened to first? The calm voice, not the loudest voice, not the most dramatic voice, the steady one, because steadiness signals control, and control signals competence. Here's another truth. Emotional reactions often expose insecurity. If a small comment ruins your day, it suggests that your self-image is fragile. But when your identity is solid, criticism becomes data, not destruction. You evaluate it, you keep what helps, you discard what doesn't, and you move forward. Mastering your emotional energy also protects your decision-making. Decisions made in anger are usually aggressive. Decisions made in fear are usually small. Decisions made in insecurity are usually desperate. But decisions made in calm clarity are strategic. Strategy produces better outcomes. Better outcomes increase confidence. And confidence shifts how people treat you. This level of control requires practice. It requires awareness. You must observe your triggers. Notice patterns. Ask yourself why certain comments affect you. Strengthen the areas where you feel most vulnerable, because emotional maturity is built intentionally. When you stop reacting emotionally, something powerful happens. People stop trying to provoke you. If their words don't move you, they lose leverage. If their criticism doesn't destabilize you, they lose control. And when others realize they cannot manipulate your state, they adjust their approach. Make this decision once. I will not allow temporary emotions to dictate permanent consequences. I will not give anyone power over my internal peace. I will operate from clarity, not chaos, from strength, not sensitivity, from purpose, not pride. Because when your emotions are disciplined, your presence becomes powerful, and powerful presence changes treatment without you ever having to demand it. If you want people to treat you differently, stop chasing attention and start positioning yourself. Because attraction always beats pursuit. Most people operate backward. They seek approval. They beg for recognition. They constantly explain why they deserve attention. And when you chase, you signal neediness. You signal that your presence is negotiable. You signal that your value is dependent on someone else noticing you. That energy repels respect, influence, and leverage. But when you position yourself correctly, the exact opposite happens. People are drawn to you. They seek your presence. They adjust their behavior around you. They treat you differently without you saying a word. Positioning yourself starts with understanding your worth. It starts with clarity about your skills, your boundaries, and your purpose. When you know who you are and what you bring, you stop reacting to everyone else's demands. You stop over-explaining. You stop bending for temporary approval. You stop competing for attention with noise. Instead, you operate from authority, and authority always attracts notice. Think about the natural law of influence. People are drawn to what is rare, what is consistent, and what is high value. If you are everywhere, available at any time, responding to every demand, you become ordinary. If you are selective, deliberate, and disciplined, you become exceptional. Selectivity increases your perceived importance. Discipline increases your credibility. Exceptional skill increases your leverage. And the combination forces others to recalibrate how they treat you. Positioning also means creating visible evidence of your value. Don't just claim it, demonstrate it. Solve problems, produce results, speak insightfully, maintain composure, handle pressure. When your actions consistently reflect competence, integrity, and focus, people cannot ignore you. They notice, they respect, and over time they treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because your presence has earned it. Another critical aspect of positioning is detachment from external validation. When you don't need everyone to recognize you, your energy shifts. You no longer compete for attention. You command it. People feel your confidence. They notice your calm certainty. They observe your consistency. And in a subtle but powerful way, they respond differently. They treat you as someone whose time and energy are valuable because they are. Strategic positioning also requires patience. You don't push for recognition. You let your work, your presence, and your results create gravity. People are drawn to excellence and consistency, not desperation. And when you operate with this mindset, you begin to attract opportunities, relationships, and respect that would have been impossible if you were chasing attention. Here's the deeper truth. When you chase, you are giving away leverage. When you position, you are creating leverage. Leverage shifts dynamics. It changes negotiations. It changes influence. It changes how people respond to your ideas, your time, and your boundaries. Positioning is not manipulation. It is alignment. It is letting your value do the talking while you operate with intentionality and control. So make this decision once. I will position myself intentionally. I will no longer chase attention or validation. I will invest in competence, discipline, and consistent action. I will create environments where people must approach me with respect because my presence, my skills, and my energy demand it. I will not bend for temporary approval, and I will not dilute my value for convenience. Because when you position yourself instead of chasing, the world responds naturally. Conversations change, opportunities shift, relationships realign, and the treatment you receive will reflect the value you have decided to embody, without begging, without pleading, without chasing. At the end of the day, people treat you the way you allow yourself to be treated. And positioning yourself ensures that what you allow is powerful, rare, and respected. If you want people to treat you differently, make the decision about who you are once and for all, and live from that identity before you wait for recognition. Most people wait for others to validate them before they act differently. They wait for promotions, praise, or external approval to be someone worthy. That's backwards. Influence, respect, and recognition are not the starting points. They are the outcomes of a person who has already decided their identity and aligned their life around it. Identity first, recognition later. Decide who you are and watch the world adjust. Making this decision is not about ego. It's about clarity. It's about defining your values, your standards, your boundaries, and your priorities. It's about answering honestly, who am I? What do I stand for? What will I not tolerate? What will I always protect? Once that answer is fixed in your mind, your actions automatically reflect it. You stop bending under pressure. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop tolerating mediocrity in relationships, work, or any environment you occupy. You operate from certainty, not from negotiation. Most people fail here because they let circumstances define them. They let mistakes, criticism, or temporary setbacks dictate their identity. But the truth is, identity is independent of external events. Your worth, your discipline, your standards, those are chosen, not assigned. And when you choose them consciously, you stop being swayed by the fleeting opinions of others. You become immovable in your presence, and immovability commands respect. When you live from a decided identity, your energy shifts. People sense the difference. They notice the consistency. They recognize the confidence that comes from not needing permission to exist fully. That energy alone changes treatment. People approach you differently. They speak differently to you. They negotiate differently with you. They hesitate before crossing lines they once would have crossed freely. Living from identity also means living with integrity. If you decide you are someone who keeps promises, your actions reflect that consistently. If you decide you are someone who values excellence, your work demonstrates it. If you decide you are someone who does not tolerate disrespect, your boundaries enforce it. Identity without action is meaningless. Action without identity is inconsistent. But when identity drives action, influence becomes automatic. The world often tests this. People will challenge your boundaries. They will question your choices. They will try to provoke you into reverting to old patterns. This is normal. The test is part of the process. Your response, calm, consistent, and aligned with your chosen identity, solidifies respect. If you falter, they notice weakness. If you hold firm, they adjust. Make this decision once. I know who I am. I will act from that identity, regardless of whether others recognize it immediately. I will align my actions, my words, and my presence with the person I have chosen to be. I will not seek permission. I will not wait for validation. I will embody my value consistently and decisively. When you live from identity first, recognition becomes inevitable. People treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because your presence, your standards, and your alignment make a clear statement. This is who I am, and this is how I operate. That clarity is magnetic. That authority is undeniable. And once you internalize that principle, you no longer have to negotiate respect, influence, or attention. You simply embody it. Make the decision once, stand firm, live aligned,